Waitress who insulted Clint Eastwood didn't know he owned the restaurant. Near the entrance, Megan, a waitress with a sharp tongue and an even sharper attitude, stood with her arms crossed. Then the door opened, and in walked an older man in a worn-out jacket and faded jeans. Megan barely spared him a glance before rolling her eyes. He didn't belong here. She smirked, stepping forward. "Sir, I don't think this is your kind of place. We don't do senior discounts." She had no idea she'd just insulted Clint Eastwood, but what happens next leave everyone shocked. Stay tuned until the end. I hope you love it. Sunset Grill wasn't just any restaurant. It was a sanctuary for the elite. Nestled in the heart of California, it was known for its 5-star menu, exclusive guest list, and a no-nonsense approach to service. If you weren't important, you weren't noticed. And Megan loved that. She had worked here for 2 years, and in that time, she had developed a keen sense of who mattered. To her, the wealthy, well-dressed customers deserved respect. The ones who looked out of place, not so much. Megan wasn't outright cruel, just selective. If a guest wasn't famous, wealthy, or influential, they barely got a second glance. She preferred to spend her shifts tending to celebrities, hoping for a good tip, or even better, a story to brag about. So, when she saw the older man in the faded jacket step inside, she didn't hesitate. She dismissed him immediately. He looked like someone who had wandered in by mistake, and she wasn't about to waste her time. With a sigh, she stepped toward him, already preparing to get rid of him. But in just a few moments, she'd realized she had made the worst mistake of her career. Megan placed a hand on her hip, staring at the older man with barely hidden impatience. He stood near the entrance, taking in the restaurant's lavish decor, his face calm, unreadable. But to Megan, he was just another nobody. "Sir," she said, forcing a tight smile, "this is a high-end establishment. Are you sure you're in the right place?" The man raised an eyebrow but remained silent. Megan sighed, already losing patience. "We have a strict dress code," she continued, gesturing at his worn-out jacket, "and we don't do senior discounts, in case you were wondering." A few nearby guests chuckled quietly. Megan smirked, satisfied with herself. The man finally spoke, his voice low, steady. "I'll just take a seat." Megan scoffed. "I don't think so. We're fully booked." She didn't even bother checking the reservation list. "You'll have to leave." As he turned, another waiter suddenly froze, his face paling as he recognized the guest. He nudged Megan frantically. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "What?" She rolled her eyes. "Just some old guy trying to sneak in." The waiter's throat went dry. "Megan, that's Clint Eastwood." Megan's smirk vanished. Her stomach twisted. Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor, director, and the owner of the very restaurant she worked at. Her pulse quickened as she looked at the man again. Oh no, she had just insulted her own boss, and judging by the look in his eyes, he knew it. Megan felt her stomach drop. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Clint Eastwood, the Hollywood legend, the man whose films had defined an entire era, and most importantly, the owner of Sunset Grill. Her mouth went dry as she slowly turned back to face him. But Clint didn't look angry. He looked amused. A faint smirk tugged at the corner of his lips, as if he had seen this scenario play out 100 times before. By now, the other staff had noticed what was happening. A hush fell over the restaurant. Guests whispered, heads turning toward the scene unfolding at the entrance. Then the restaurant manager appeared, rushing forward. His face was pale with panic. "Mr. Eastwood!" he blurted out, extending a hand. I didn't know you were stopping by today." Clint shook his hand, then turned back to Megan, his smirk deepening. "Megan, was it?" His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. She swallowed hard, forcing a stiff nod. Yes, sir." He gestured around the restaurant casually. "So, You don't think this is my kind of place?" A ripple of nervous laughter moved through the dining room. Megan's cheeks burned. She had never felt so small. This wasn't just an embarrassing moment. This was career-ending, and she had no idea what Clint Eastwood was about to do next. Megan's hands clenched at her sides. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear anything over the rush of blood in her ears. She wanted to disappear. "Sir, I didn't mean anything by it," she stammered, forcing a nervous laugh. "It was just a misunderstanding." Clint tilted his head slightly, studying her. His smirk remained, but his piercing gaze made her feel exposed, powerless. The restaurant manager sighed, rubbing his temples. "Megan, this is unacceptable," he muttered. "This is not how we treat people here." Clint slowly reached for a menu from a nearby table and handed it to her. "Here," he said smoothly. "Take a look at the owner's name on the front." Megan's fingers trembled as she opened the menu, and there, printed in bold letters, was a name that sent ice through her veins. Sunset Grill, owned by Clint Eastwood. She turned pale. She had just insulted the one man who could end her career. Megan swallowed hard, her face burning with humiliation. She had spent so much time judging people by appearances that she had never considered the consequences. Clint watched her for a moment, then sighed. "I could fire you right now," he said calmly, "but instead, I'll give you one chance." Megan's eyes widened. "A chance?" she whispered. He nodded. "From now on, treat every customer like they belong here. You never know who you're talking to." Megan nodded quickly. Lesson learned. Clint simply smirked, walked to his usual table and ordered his coffee, as if nothing had happened.